Talia, 32, and all my life I've tried to be the perfect daughter. I always tiptoed around my father, careful not to upset him. But last Christmas, everything changed when he slapped me hard in front of 30 guests, and my mother actually laughed. That was the moment I found my voice and my strength. Before I tell you how a single phone call changed my family forever, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories like mine. A picture-perfect facade. Growing up in our middle-class Boston neighborhood, our family appeared perfect from the outside. My father, James Marshall, was a successful corporate lawyer known for his sharp mind and equally sharp tongue. His perfectionism wasn't limited to his career. He ran our family with the same precision, control, and intolerance for emotional nonsense. My mother, Diana, was the quintessential socialite, obsessed with appearances and community reputation. Behind closed doors, however, she was emotionally distant. When my dad's temper flared, she would simply look away and later tell me, "That's just how men are, Talia. You need to learn to manage him better." From a young age, I learned that my parents' approval was a reward for achievement. I studied constantly, earning straight A's and joining every impressive extracurricular activity. But each accomplishment was met with a cool nod and the question, "What's next?" Despite my efforts, I had a secret passion they dismissed as impractical: art. At 12, I'd hide in my room, sketching portraits and landscapes, feeling alive in a way that academic success never made me feel. One day, my father found my sketchbook. "This is what you've been wasting your time on," he asked, his expression dismissive. "The Marshalls aren't artists. We're professionals." He told me not to neglect my studies for my hobby. My mother added, "Listen to your father, dear. He knows what's best for you." This dismissal was made even harder by the way they treated my younger brother, Alex, who was the golden child and could do no wrong. They fully supported his choices and hired tutors when his grades slipped without a word of disappointment. In high school, my art teacher entered one of my paintings in a citywide competition without my knowledge. When I won and was offered a spot in a prestigious summer art program, I was ecstatic. But my father immediately scheduled a meeting with my guidance counselor to enroll me in a Young Leaders in Law camp instead, claiming it would look better on my college applications. I tried to argue for the art program, but his glare silenced my mother's attempt to intercede. "Do you want our daughter waiting tables for the rest of her life?" he said, ending the discussion. I went to the law camp, hated every minute, and buried my dreams a little deeper. College was more of the same. I excelled in courses I had no passion for and applied to my father's alma mater for pre-law. I secretly applied to one arts college in New York and was accepted with a scholarship, but I tore up the letter, knowing I had no choice. When I graduated with honors, my father's only comment was, "Now the real work begins." He had already arranged for me to work at a law firm in Chicago. My life was completely mapped out for me, with no room for personal choice. I just didn't know if I'd ever find the courage to change. A secret life. 3 years after college, my life was a careful balancing act between the person my parents expected me to be and the person I wanted to become. From Monday to Friday, I was Talia Marshall, a promising young associate at a law firm, specializing in corporate law as my father had planned. But on Saturday mornings, I would escape to a small studio space I rented in an artsy neighborhood, where I spent the entire day painting. The moment I picked up a brush, I felt like I could breathe again. This secret life was mine alone, and I lived in constant fear that my father would find out about my wasted time. Everything changed 6 months ago when I accidentally left a sketchbook in a coffee shop. When I went back to retrieve it, the barista told me a man had found it and left his card. The card read Michael Chen, owner of Frontier Gallery. I almost threw it away, but, out of curiosity, I called. Michael, a 35-year-old gallery owner, was genuine. He saw something special in my art and encouraged me to show him my paintings. By our 5th coffee date, we were no longer just talking about art, we were dating. Michael was everything my parents disapproved of, a creative professional who valued passion over prestige. For the first time, someone saw the real me and encouraged her. "You know, you could do this professionally," Michael told me one evening. When I told him my father would disown me, he asked softly, Would that be the worst thing in the world? As my relationship with Michael deepened, so did the pressure from my father about my legal career. My mother's calls focused on my relationship status and a suitable man for me. I finally admitted I was seeing someone who owned an art gallery, and her interest sharpened immediately, asking about his background and telling me not to bring him to the annual Christmas party. A fateful trip home. The annual Marshall Christmas party was a legendary event in Boston legal circles, a status symbol that was non-negotiable for family members. 2 weeks before the party, my father demanded I come home early to help with preparations. I protested, telling him I had an important meeting that day, my first real opportunity as an artist, as Michael had arranged for a curator to see my work. My father insisted, "Nothing is more important than family, Talia." I cancelled the meeting, and Michael's words stayed with me. "At some point, you'll have to decide whose life you're living." I packed my bag for Boston, slipping a small sketchbook between my clothes as a tiny act of rebellion. The Talia returning to Boston wasn't the same one who had left. The moment I stepped through the front door, I felt myself shrinking back into the obedient child. My mother's first words were about how tired I looked, not how much she had missed me. My father, with a BlackBerry in hand, immediately gave me a set of instructions for the night. In stark contrast, when my brother Alex arrived an hour later, he was greeted with genuine hugs and conversation. The difference in treatment was a painful reminder of my perpetual second-place status. Later, my high school best friend, Jasmine, took me out for coffee. She told me she was worried about me, saying, "Every time you come home, it's like watching someone slowly drown." She gave me the business card of her therapist, just in case I needed to talk. The next day, I found a box of my old artwork in the attic. My mother dismissed my old drawings as a hobby to pass down. When I asked if she was ever proud of me for being me, she looked confused. "Of course, we're proud of you. You're a Marshall." That night, my father criticized the centerpieces I'd arranged. "This is exactly your problem, Talia," he said. "You settle for good enough when excellence is required." I realized nothing I did would ever be enough. The last straw. The morning of the Christmas party, the house was a flurry of activity. I had been up since 5, steaming tablecloths and arranging name cards, while my brother watched football. My mother announced that Judge Harrington's son would be there and that I should wear the navy dress he liked. I was too exhausted to argue. At 6 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. I played the perfect daughter, engaging in superficial conversations about my career. At 7:30, I spotted a familiar face by the entrance, Michael. He had shown up to give me moral support. My heart leaped and plummeted simultaneously. When my father approached, I introduced Michael and tried to conceal the true nature of our relationship by saying we met near the courthouse. My father's expression cooled, and he quickly led me away. At dinner, I was seated at a different table from Michael, a clear message that he was not an acceptable part of my life. I kept catching his eye across the room, and his encouraging smiles made me question if I was going to keep hiding who I really was. During dessert, my father stood to make his annual toast, praising Alex's stellar year and mentioning my legal accomplishments. He concluded by saying the Marshall legal legacy continued. I made a decision. I pulled my father aside and told him about my opportunity to show my artwork in a real gallery exhibition. "I'm thinking about reducing my hours at the firm to pursue it more seriously," I said. His voice lowered dangerously. "You want to throw away a law career that I handed to you on a silver platter for some childish hobby?" He called my passion a self-indulgent creative expression that no one cares about. I replied, "I care, and maybe that should matter to you." He hissed, "What should matter to you is that you're embarrassing this family right now." Then, he slapped me. The sound echoed through the room, and for a moment, everything froze. When I turned back to face him, his expression was a mix of shock and fury. Then, from across the room, I heard nervous laughter. My mother, who had approached during our argument, gave an uncomfortable titter and said loudly, "Well, the holidays always bring out such passion in families, don't they?" Her attempt to laugh off my public humiliation was the final betrayal. In that instant, I saw my family with perfect clarity: my controlling father, my enabling mother, and me, the perpetual people-pleaser. Michael appeared at my side, his face full of concern. I was shattered and strangely liberated all at once. Without saying a word, I walked out of the room. The moment my bedroom door closed behind me, I collapsed, the physical pain nothing compared to the emotional devastation. My father had hit me, and my mother had laughed. The perfect daughter was a fiction we had all pretended to believe in.